Season opening weekend for the BMW IBSF Bobsleigh and Skeleton World Cup. We're at Sigulda in Latvia. In fact, we're in Sigulda for the first two race weekends of this strange 2020-21 season. Hello everybody, welcome back to our skeleton coverage this Friday afternoon. First of two heats of this opener for the men's competition. 18 sleds from 9 nations. There are a number of countries who aren't travelling because of restrictions, but we have a good strong field here at this 1,200 metre long sliver of Latvian ice. 99 metre drop from start to finish, and that includes a 5-storey drop out of the start tower. Short, sharp start. This really suits the sprinters. Cheng Yin of China setting a new record on his debut in the World Cup here last year, 4.47. Now the Chinese, the Koreans, the Americans and the Canadians are all at home at the moment. None have travelled to Europe pre-Christmas. Hopefully that will change as restrictions change. It's a busy track this. You come into the upper labyrinth very quickly, and you're down through the lower labyrinth and then into the really big fast corners, 11 and 12, 13, and then 14, and then the big signature 15 corner, corkscrew corner 16 to end the run. But uphill out of 15, over the outrun, sled goes light, lots of skidding here, drop down into 16, and it's a 270-degree corner. You go under the track you've just left, and then head up through the finish line up to the short finish area. Well, it was dry this morning, a little frosty after being -1, -2 overnight, but rain has returned. It was raining yesterday and the day before, so their final day of training, they had up to 3 runs on Thursday, on Wednesday, beg your pardon, in training. So it will be fairly similar conditions. Ice up to -2, air temperature 2 degrees, and very moist. Well, there's Felix Keisinger, the young German, very quick starter, won the season opening races in the German Championship. And his two teammates here, Alexander Gassner and Christopher Grotheer, both very successful. Axel hasn't made the team pre-Christmas, but again, there are likely to be selection trials. Vladyslav Heraskevych for the Ukraine. There's Chris Grotheer limbering up. Grotheer, the sensational winner of the World Championship in Altenburg. So let's take a look at our start draw then. Mihai Pacioianu of Romania heads us off. Mattia Gaspari back to World Cup action ahead of Kaiser, who makes his World Cup debut. Chris Grotheer and Felix Keisinger ahead of Thomas Dukurs, Craig Thompson, Martin Dukurs. Rounding out the top 10 in our start draw will be Alexander Gassner ahead of Nikita Tregubov, the winner here 2 years ago, Alexander Tretiakov, and the rest of the 18-strong field. Getting our men's skeleton competition underway for the season in the BMW IBSF series is Mihai Pacioianu. Trains and races with the bobsleigh team for Romania. His dad is the national coach, but he's also his own skeleton slider. 21 years old, finished just outside the top 20 here last year. Relatively inexperienced in the Sigulda track. Little clip from 2 to 3. It's only the 7th World Cup start for Mihai, but he's done a couple of World Championships as well. And the young Romanian, Sigulda here last year, 22nd was his best place finish. Now, assuming he doesn't crash in either run, he will beat that. It's not actually a bad looking run either. A couple of big skids. Speed is decent, 111.5. This sled's going quicker than that at the bottom. Perhaps up to 120 kilometers an hour from the men. 52.17. That's not a bad-looking slide to get proceedings underway for Mihai Pacioianu. So it's good to see the Romanian team here. Lots of excitement and enthusiasm from their athletes and coaches. And Mihai working with the bobsleigh team all season, all summer long, after lockdown allowed them to get back together. Little early height there, making him steer hard, and again here as well. Just a long toe drag, just to drag the sled away from the right-hand wall, which is where he thought it was heading. And out of 14, late breakaway as you go over the brow to 15. Nice mask action as well from the Romanian. Second up, and a return to World Cup racing that came at the end of last season for this Italian slider, 27 years old, Mattia Gaspari. His Sigulda in February was his first World Cup since Pyeongchang 2017. Leading into the games, he had an Achilles tear, which cost him a couple of full seasons just to get fit and back into the team. 24th World Cup start for Mattia. And after spending 2 full years really away from the ice, last year was his recovery season, just trying to get back into it. A couple of hundreds ahead of Pacioianu. The gap is starting to grow. Better speed than the Romanian. .43 up. Mattia was really on the cusp of getting into top 10 results in what is always a tricky field to do that when he had his injury. A 51.13. The track record from Martis Dukurs, the winner in February, a 49.94. Don't think we're going to see that even remotely challenged today, but with Martins you never know, do you? Well, not a bad start at all to the day. 4.71 getaway for Mattia Gaspari. Very good. So 4.70 for our first starter, Mihai Pacioianu, 4.71 for Mattia. He came down a second faster than the Romanian. Not a bad exit, little late there. And that all knocks on further on down the run. And here's the big signature corner 15. Big height in the middle of that, up near the frost. Yeah, next run, there's always another. Well, there isn't always another, but in his case, there definitely is today. Now, first of all, a couple of World Cup debutants, although we did see him in the World Championships in Altenburg, is Samuel Kaiser from Switzerland, 22 years old, and explains his arrival in skeleton quite simply. Kirsten Simkowiak, the former German slider, who was then the coach of the Swiss, or then became the coach of the Swiss, is his aunt. So he had a family in, if you like. Not that it got him in, but it got him interested into it. 4.86 for the 22-year-old Swiss, the start. A smooth run through the upper labyrinth, a little late maybe. Through 7.89, down to the big right-hander at corner 10. That's a flick on and off really quick into a long corner 11. And out of 12, 13, big right-hander. Exit of 14, down the straight, over the rise and dropping down quickly into 15. Beg your pardon, out of 15 over the rise, then into 16. A bad-looking run. 0.75 back, second place. .51.88. That might be a top 10 time. You never really can tell this early on. So World Cup debut for Samuel Kaiser. A little bit of yellow in the background, very nice too. Keeping his chin down, shoulders down as well. Really important to reduce that frontal area, as any car designer will tell you. The more of a bluff front you're trying to push through the air, the more it takes out of you in terms of lost energy. So keeping those shoulders rolled down onto the sled, really important for aero and for control. 43rd World Cup start now for Christopher Grotheer. Didn't race here last season. He's back training up in Altenburg, and that wasn't a bad call, was it? Wasn't here in February, but by the end of the month, he'd become a world champion, just 28 years old. First World Cup for Christopher Grotheer. We met him in Lake Placid in November 2012 for the first time. A little bit in and out occasionally of the German team. 468, that's a good start. And to have gone out at the end of last season and won the World Championships, a huge result for him. Not a regular World Cup winner by anybody's standards. And with the Dukurs brothers and the strong Russians and Americans and Canadians and so on, even the German team struggled to win races. 800s up, Christopher Grotheer. Best speed so far, 1:15.6. Nearly a kilometre an hour quicker than Mattia Gaspari. He should be fairly well ahead of the Italian 2/10. And speed at the bottom is really, really significant. He was 200s ahead at the start. By the midpoint, only 800s. But then that speed at the bottom, you don't, well, you do earn it, I suppose, by getting the lines right and steering little and hitting even less. 50.93 run. Great starting action from Christopher Grotheer. New German coach in the skeleton team. Last year, Dirk Matjens was in charge, having taken over from Jens Müller at the end of the previous season. Christopher Bauder is their head coach this year. I wonder whether that will bring a different atmosphere. Pacing like a caged tiger, no change there then, is there? You don't even need to see the face, just the body language at the top of the track of Felix Keisinger tells you exactly who's there. 23 years old. And he always says he is just so hyped before the start. Often his first run is a horror story. As a result, he said, I've just got to calm down. His grandfather says the same to him, apparently. Have 2 second heats. 4:53. That's a really good rocket ship start again from Keisinger. Destroyed the German opposition in their first selection races. And earned himself a place in the team without any question. 4/10 ahead of Christopher Grotheer. Little toe steer and a skid as a result of the speed he's carrying down here. Nice straight exit, tracks well down the straight. Over the brow and down into 16. Best speed we've seen so far from Christopher Grotheer, but he wasn't far away and holds a 1/4 of a second advantage. Yeah. One finger is what you want to see down at the bottom. Shakes his head, though. There were mistakes, and he's just thinking of that late exit that we saw and 3 or 4 other things that he'll know that my eyes aren't catching. And in the new normal, masks go on immediately. I'll take a look at him away from the start. Even in HD, his legs are a blur, aren't they? Now here's that late second pressure, brings him out, drops him off the end wall. And that, well, down here, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 all come at you so quickly that one mistake is a 5 corner error. Still, there is room for improvement, which is always a good thing. Felix Keisinger leads Christopher Grotheer and Mattia Gaspari, 5 down, 13 to go in Heat 1. 6th of our starters is the most experienced slider in the skeleton field. Thomas Dukurs of Latvia, 39 years old now. And last season in February this year was a phenomenal outpouring of emotion at this track. Not only did we get a family 1-2 in the men's skeleton competition, Martin's winning ahead of Thomas, but also, of course, an Olympic gold medal was presented to their 4-man Olympic champions. place was absolutely packed to the rafters, despite what was a bit dodgy weather. No fans at all, unfortunately, this weekend or next. We're in the grip of a major second spike in COVID. Thomas Dukurs driving himself into the lead at the bottom of the run by 0.02 of a second. There's no foam matting at the end, so the sliders have to use their toes and spikes to slow down, which is not easy when you think they're coming across the line at getting on for 67, 68 miles an hour, 118 or so kilometers an hour, and then trying to slow down into 15. Good height, but not right up by the woodwork. Doesn't get pushed away too much by the berm up there. Look at the way the head is bounced up and down by the G-forces. Long skid here, though, from 15 to 16. That'll be a head shake from the Latvian. You can see how glossy the track looks. I think as the afternoon progresses, that'll get very matte and frosty because the refrigeration is on to hold the ice together, but it is very humid. Starter 7 of our field of the season, 7th sled of the season, is Craig Thompson from Great Britain, 23-year-old former soccer player. This is only his 9th World Cup start. His best result, 6th place in Innsbruck in January this year. And he is another slider who has got phenomenal speed at the start and great load as well, so fluid. 4:53. That's the same speed as we saw from Felix Keisinger at the start. Keisinger lying in 2nd place. Craig still in the green over Thomas Dukurs. He did start 1600s quicker than Dukurs. He's still got 1400s of it nearly at the midpoint on the track. And you see the speed, the way that the sliders who come off fastest are really just whipping through these turns. 400's the advantage, 2nd fastest to Thomas Dukurs. Good speed, but not good enough to take the lead. 700's back, and that's 3rd place. 500's off 2nd at the moment. We have a tight race on our hands. That's a really good run from Craig Thompson. That's a really good run. We had a very different looking, podium in the women's competition. Let's see if we get a different looking one in the men's contest as well. Exeter 14. Holding it pretty straight. Eyes looking away from the wall. Just drift the body away. And that's a good exit. Big early height in 15. And that leaves him coming back up as he brought it down just a fraction early, and then the G-forces push him back up.
Love you for watching. Hi, Dad.
What, again? No love for the commentator? Next up, Martis Dukurs, like brother Thomas, starting officially his 127th World Cup. There are some that we don't have the official records of, though. They are well into the 130s, each of them. Martis Dukurs wearing a yellow jersey. He was last year's World Cup champion. That was his 9th World Cup Crystal Globe. He is a 6-time world champion, 54 race wins in World Cup racing alone, the last of which came here in Sigulda in February. Basically just got the entire winter season done, didn't we, before COVID hit Europe and we went into lockdown. A little wild. Not too often you see Martin having a toe steer. A couple of corrections here as well. Just huge speed, 1:16.3 to 1:16.5 of Thomas. Still ahead of his brother. He had a slightly quicker start. The gap between them, 4500ths of a second. Dear Lord, he hasn't lost anything again, has he? 37 years old, with the enthusiasm of a 17-year-old. Father Daniil is still involved in not only operating this track, but also, of course, coordinating the Latvian skeleton team. And it can't be too far away. Not sure whether his kids are showing interest in sliding, but they can't be too far away from an age when they might be. See, Martin's working hard with the head and the body there. Didn't stop him flopping late off the turn. He realised he dropped too low down. But it was too late to do much about it. And that's the problem with the track changing. Look at the bow on the runners. They're not flat all the way along like an ice skate. They're not sharp-edged. They're rounded runners, about the width of your finger. And they have a rock on them like a rocking chair. Halfway through our 18-strong field with our 9th starter, Vladyslav Heraskevych of the Ukraine, now 21 years old, in his 3rd World Cup season. This is World Cup start number 24, so quarter century will be chalked up here next week. All things being equal, World Cup best 8th place in Lake Placid. Another great driver's track. Really works hard on maintaining that aerodynamic form. And arms clamped down his side, heels together. And you need experience, you need to know exactly where you're going. It's not a busket sliding style. And often, to maintain his form, he takes some pretty big hits. I was telling you last year that he lost more than a dozen kilos to get down from his martial arts and fighting weights to a weight that he felt he could sprint better at. 7th fastest run for Vladyslav. There's his father Mihai, another strongman competitor. Going a long way up the outrun. So 51.67 slide for Vladyslav Heraskevych. Leaves him ahead of Samuel Kaiser and not too far behind Mattia Gaspari. And Vlad finishing in 14th place last year. He's got a definite chance of being a top 10 finisher in this year's race. And of course they stay here. They were here training last week, racing this week. They stay here and race again here next week. And unlike motor racing, you can't change the track. You can't put in chicanes or remove things. It is what it is. Next up, Germany's Alexander Gassner. And Gassner, again, after a strong performance in the World Championships, looking to carry that through into this season. Worked well in the German selection races. Again, Gassner's been an occasional work. Not occasional, less than consistent, let's say. Came back a couple of years ago, came in for headshots for EECs and said, oh, I guess you don't remember me. Well, we definitely did, but he was right. He hadn't been in the World Cup for a couple of years. Ooh, big hit 2 to 3, and that pushes you offline all the way down through that upper labyrinth. Back on track through 7, 8 and 9, but half a second back. In the 6th best speed. In the top 6 run at the moment. See if he can negotiate 11, 12 and then 13, 14 nicely. Second highest speed. Gassner never looks like the tidiest slide, but that was a good one, top 5. Bronze in the World Championships in the men's skeleton in Altenburg. And he was also, for the first time, there was a mixed team championship. And he was the gold medalist in the mixed skeleton team championship. And it was a great fun competition. Nobody really went into it knowing what to expect. But one male slider, one female slider. A lot of fun at the end of the skeleton season back in March, end of February. Gassner with that early hit, and then this long skid taking speed out of the sled. Nevertheless, not a bad looking run into 5th place in Heat 1 of the year. At this stage, I should say how many more heats there are, but I'll work that out in the break. Martinson, Thomas Dukurs, a 1-2 in February, a 1-2 currently ahead of Felix, Keisinger, and Craig Thompson, Alexander Gassner, and Christopher Grotheer. 10 sleds down, 8 to go. Heat 1 of the season for the BMW IBSF Men's Skeleton World Cup. This is Nikita Tregubov. 2 seasons ago, our first World Cup here in recent memory. I was going to say in living memory, but certainly in the memory of almost every athlete bar 3. He was the winner. And he was as shocked as everybody else when it suddenly dawned on him that that was his first ever World Cup win. But no, really, surely? Tregubov, 2018 winner, still his only World Cup victory. World champion in 2019, 2018 at the World Championship and Olympic 2018 silver medalist. Silver in the Worlds as well in 2019. In the red, all the way down here from the start, 468. Only the 5th best starter in the field. Who thought you'd ever say that about Nikita? Born in Armenia, started his career as an Armenian, racing for Russia. And a 50.76. 5th best start, 5th at the bottom of the track. But he brought that back after the errors early on. And the women's competition, none of the 3 Russian girls had a really convincing day. Well, good style at the start, good load, but he has not got the speed that once marked him out as the absolute fastest man. Late exit, and that's the way the sled in the trade flops. In any other parlance, falls off the wall of the track and onto the running surface. You can see the track is now starting to lose that wet gloss and starting to become a little frosty. And that will continue as the day goes on. Well, of all the athletes in the field in any of the disciplines, only 3 were here more than 2 years ago when we had a previous World Cup. The 2 Dukurs brothers and Alexander Tretiakov. Well, let's see what Alex can produce. 5th place last year. Hasn't had such a strong relationship with this track. And Tretiakov, last year's Silver Globe, silver medalist, finished in 2nd in the World Cup standings. Actually, for him, it wasn't a bad season. Won 3 races, 2 further podiums. Only 8th place in Altenburg in the World Championships, though. He wants to turn that form around. All big height and a late flop of 15. It's going away from him at the bottom of the track. 4th fastest run, 50.72, 100th ahead of Craig Thompson, and 400s ahead of his teammate Nikita Tregubov. He's 400s behind Felix Keisinger and 600s behind Thomas Dukurs in 2nd. So we have got a very tight group at the top. And Tretiakov bringing that back again. 4th fastest start with a 4:57. Big height there. Was he in the woodwork? I don't know, but the build-up of ice certainly pushed him down. And the sled then coming back up on the exit. Thirteenth starter in our field of 18, Marcus Wyatt of Great Britain. Marcus had a pretty decent race here in February, finished in 8th place. It was his joint 2nd best result, in fact. He had 3 8th places in Lake Placid, Winterberg and here. Best race of the year, though. 4th place in Eagles, 4:57, 100th off the lead. That's the same start time as we saw from Alexander Tretiakov. So is he in with a shot at this? Teammate Craig Thompson started fastest, 4:53. Felix Keisinger the same. So this could well be a top half dozen run. 4th fastest start. 5th place at the moment, but sliding away. Decent exit off 14, can bring it over onto line for 15. Doesn't get too much early heights, that's a good exit. Only the 9th highest speed on 14.6. And at the line, 8th place, 50.90. Well, from the start, it almost looked like that run could have gone maybe a couple of tenths quicker. Speed just drifting away a little bit down the track. So Marcus Wyatt of Great Britain in 8th place, ahead of Christopher Grotheer. And 300s behind Alexander Gassner. So mixing it with the Germans, but the medals are a little bit of a stretch away at the moment. 2200s out of the bronze medal position. 2400s out of silver. Well, nothing to say that you can't change that around and find that time in a second heat. This is still not a hugely well-known track for our athletes. Start draw number 14 for the Italian Amedeo Bagnis. Now, he brought himself into the World Cup squad with a hugely impressive start. Let's see what he's got at the start. 4:83. Oh, big hit from 2 to 3, and already 6 tenths back. And the unfortunate thing when you're comparing yourself to Martin Dukurs is that it is kind of like comparing yourself to Usain Bolt. Bagnis 13th at the start. Ooh. And working really hard here. Does not know the Sigulda track. So a week of sliding is not really enough to get his head around it. 13th at the start, 13th at the bottom. He's ahead of Mihai Pacioianu of Romania. And a 51.96 run from him. So he's only a few hundreds behind Sammy Kaiser of Switzerland. I see him drifting away here, leaning the body, just trying to get the line. So he gets away from the wall, doesn't get pushed away too early. From 2 into 3, got pushed away, that drops you into the bottom of the turn. Exit of 14. We've seen later exits for sure. There he's working hard the toes, trying to stop the sled penduluming around underneath him. Moments or two of concentration for Austria's Florian Auer. He's the 15th of our starters in this first of 2 heats, men's skeleton World Cup in Sigulda. Comes from a sliding family. Brother Alex also used to slide. And his father Christian was a massive force in the early official years of skeleton sliding. A bit of a 2-part load for Florian. 4:79 getaway. It's the 12th fastest start. Little nudge from 2 to 3. Like all good Austrian sliders, trying to maintain the aerodynamic form. take the hits a little bit. Shoulder up there to try and bring the line back. 12th best speed, 114 kilometers now. That's Dukurs the fastest at 116.5. Nobody else has got that close to that. And from the 12th best start, 11th at the line, 51.58. So he's in that tight battle as well. 900s ahead of Vladyslav Heraskevych. But 10th place Mattia Gaspari is around 4/10 in front. Mattia second out of the start shed. And an early start draw was definitely not a hindrance. Not sure the track is getting any faster at the moment. You can see the runner marks are getting more and more noticeable. In these moist conditions, it's like having the door on your freezer slightly ajar. The refrigeration is on hard and the moist, warm air does get very frosty when it hits the cold surface. That's exactly what happens on the track. And greetings back to you as well. Martins and Thomas Dukurs lead Felix Keisinger in our first heat in Sigulda. Second World Cup start for Great Britain's Matt Weston, the 23-year-old. Was cycled in and out for one race weekend in the World Cup last year. Just to give him a bit of a shock at the new, 4:58. That is top 6 starting from Matt Weston. Hit from 2 to 3 though. Let's see if he can keep it nice and clean here. This is potentially a top 5 run. If that's not the curse of the commentator, I don't know what is. Decent speed. He was 8th quickest. Now 5th best speed, 116.1, and that will bring him down to the line, hopefully in the top half dozen, maybe even 5th place at the line. It is 5th place at the line. That was a really nicely controlled run from Matt Weston. Got away from him a little bit in the lower labyrinth, but brought it back, found his form again, and held good speed at the bottom. Good speed at the bottom here is so key. Good speed at the top doesn't hurt either. And Matt Weston, 6th fastest start. Craig Thompson, his teammate, ahead of him. In fact, not ahead of him, tied on time. Off a 4:53 start, so they came down 52 hundredths off the lead. The sled in front of them is Alexander Tretiakov, 100th in front. And the medals for the 2 Brits are 5 hundredths of a second away. Now then, our second World Cup debutant is Russia's Daniil Romanov. I'm not sure if he's any relation of the former royal family. But a great opportunity for Russian sliders to start their career here. Nowadays, they probably do at least as much training in Sochi as they do here, but for many years, this was home from home. And a 4:59 getaway. Nothing wrong with that, is there? Now let's see what else he can produce. Haven't seen this kid in action yet. Elena Frolova made her World Cup debut for Russia in the women's race. And Daniil Romanov in the men's competition. Speed is slipping away from him though. You can hear the toes dragging. The sled is really skidding underneath him. Head up. Not confident with the way it's going. Where's he going to be at the line? 14th position with a 51.88. And he's our 17th slider, our second rookie. And he is tied, in fact, with Samuel Kaiser, who is our other World Cup debutant. They are currently inseparable in 14th place. Not a bad getaway, 7th fastest in the field from Daniil Romanov. Giving away only 400s at the start to the fastest starters, Craig Thompson and Felix Keisinger. And experience is everything in this business, so Romanov needs a bit more of that. So Alexander Tretiakov down there at the bottom, watching everything on the screen. And our 18th and final starter is Ronald Auderset. Ronnie missed almost all of last year and came back right at the end of the season. Did not make the cut, except in Koenigsegg. He missed almost all this previous year and came back last season. And here in Sigulda was a disappointing year for him. He hadn't raced here too much before. Ended up in 25th place. But again, if he completes both runs, he will do considerably better than that in this season. Let's see where he is so far from the 14th fastest start. He's 14th on the splits at the moment, but drifting away now behind Romanov and Kaiser, his teammate. Can he bring it back and be the top Swiss? Or is World Cup debutant Samuel Kaiser going to be ahead of him? Kaiser is ahead of him, and he is in fact behind Amedeo Bagnis of Italy as well. So 17th at line for Ronald Auderset, with a 52.09 slide in the first of his 2 heats here in Sigulda in Latvia. Extra 14, you can see he's already steering. The right foot is up. And the body just moving around on the sled. You want to be as loose as possible so your body acts as a damper so the runners aren't chattering up and down on the ice. But being loose and going head first at 70 miles an hour down an ice tube aren't necessarily comfortable bedmates. Well, there it's Ronnie, who never lacks enthusiasm and application. And that can equally be said for the man at the top of the pile, last year's race winner, last year's World Cup champion, Martins Dukurs. Sigulda was the third of his 3 wins last year. And right now, he has a very handy margin at the top of the pile in a run that even by his standards could do with a little bit of tidying up. He's 45 hundredths ahead of his brother Thomas, but look at the battle for the medals. 2 hundredths of a second between Dukurs and Keisinger, a further 4 back to Tretiakov, 1 back to Thompson and Weston, 3 back to Tregubov, 11 hundredths back Alexander Gassner. We could be in for a very big sort out, more than 1 tie in a field of 18 sleds. We could see a lot of changes in our second and deciding heat. And that will come up at 16:45 local, 14:45 GMT. And that will be in just an hour from now. Join us then until we get into our second run. From me, Martin Haven, from the IBSF TV crew in Sigulda. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you with the next programme at 2:45 GMT, 4:45 local in Sigulda.